And from that point forward, that changed everything. That completely redirected the baseline of my life, because I looked into his eyes and I could see. And that reflection, to me, gave me hope and helped me focus on the blessings. Like when I was paralyzed, what could be worse? What could be worse than that? Not being able to walk.
All right, now we are recording.
Beautiful blue skies.
These beautiful blue skies in Chattanooga after all the rain.
Sun is shining on us.
There you go.
Blessings.
Absolutely. Well, we have a very, very special episode of The Art of Connecting. I met Markus yesterday. We have Markus Keicher here. And I don't know Marcus's story yet, because I specifically said he told me he has an incredible story, and I said I want to wait to hear it for the first time on the podcast, because Bruce, episode 2 there, came up to me and was like, you got to meet this guy, dude. Markus has such an incredible story. He'd be such a perfect person to come on the podcast. So we are so excited to have you here, Markus, and thank you for coming on today.
Thanks for having me. I'd like to hear the perfect person. That feels good.
The perfect person.
The perfect person.
That's right.
To be on the show.
That's you, baby. Well, let's hear a little bit of your story. I want to hear it.
You want to hear it?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Well, it's about connection. That's why we're here, connecting. How we connect as human beings, and the power behind the connection. So I think I could start my story off by being paralyzed in a motorcycle accident. I survived going off like a 75-foot cliff at 50 miles an hour. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. By the sure grace that's all divine, I caught some trees, and it slowed down my fall, and I ended up ricocheting, and I came to rest, broken half, face down in the creek. Yeah. I remember when I went off the cliff, and I looked down, and I was like, okay, this is it. And, I'm seeing the last moments of my life, because I thought for sure there was no way. It wasn't a matter of, this one's going to hurt. It was like lights out. There was just, I remember feeling I was bummed that was going to be the last moments of my life. And then I think I can remember breaking through the trees, and then I regained consciousness, broken half, face down in the creek. Like literally. Luckily, somewhere through that fall or that leap or flying through the air, the shield blew off my helmet. So I was face down, but I could lift my head out of the water and let the water drain from the helmet and take a deep breath of air and hold on to it, and then put my head back in the water and relax a little bit, pull my head back out. And then I was like, no way. I can't believe I'm alive, right? Like if I didn't think I was dying going off the cliff, and I'm like, wait, no way. I cannot believe I'm still alive. And then, the wind got knocked out of me, and I'm trying to put everything together. I'm like, wait, I'm in water. Like, why am I in water? Just trying to figure this all out. What's happening, what's going on was a very intense moment of my life, let's say that, because, I thought it was bad when I went off the cliff, but then I was like, uh-oh. And I was riding by myself. And I couldn't get out of the water. My hands were at my side. So then I started to realize that, all right, if I didn't die going off the cliff, I'm going to die now, because I couldn't get out of the water. I was paralyzed. I had a spinal cord injury, so everything went into paralysis. So I couldn't move. And then I realized that I had to make peace with my life. It was right around the corner from the last moments of my life. So it was a very intense afternoon, to put it lightly.
I'd imagine.
I can laugh about it now.
Yeah.
I can laugh about it now.
I just can't. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to even fathom that when you're, in the seat that I am, 22 years old and healthy. I mean, thinking about like what that had to be like is borderline impossible, So.
Well, think about that.
Yeah.
I'm 25. I was 25 when it happened to me. And I'm 52 now. So your whole life I've been working through this. So, I guess we could just move forward with the story. So, it got to the point where, and also I have to mention that it was in October. So the water was ice cold. So I was going into hypothermia. And shock was kicking in. Everything was starting to point to the fact that I was going to die. And I didn't want to die in a bad state of mind because I knew it was imminent. I knew that death was right around the corner. So I started making peace with my life. And, I'm the youngest of 11 and, just had really great brothers and sisters, a mom and dad. Just started thinking about them. And then I was really bummed because when I took off riding, I didn't tell anyone I was going riding. So no one knew where I went. And I was at the bottom of a ravine. So I was going to be that guy that went for a ride and never came back. And so I felt really, really bad that my friends and my family were going to have to deal with the fact that not only was I not there, but they didn't know where I went.
Wow. So how did you get out of that situation?
That's a good question because I'm still here.
Yeah, he's here in front of the microphone talking to us. And by the way, he walked here, and we'll get to that more. But yeah, how did you get rescued?
So as I was coming down the canyon, I don't remember, but I passed a couple guys in a truck, 2 guys in a truck, and a couple corners later is when I went off the cliff. And as they came around, they didn't see me go off the cliff, but they saw the commotion that my motorcycle had kicked up when I went on off the road. They pulled over and they just used some critical thinking in the fact that they saw that much commotion. They didn't hear my motor, and they made the correct assumption that I went off. So one stayed to, this was back in 1995, so he stayed and flagged someone down so they could call fire rescue. And then Daniel came down to look for me and find me. And so right as I was making peace with my life, because I couldn't keep doing it, I couldn't keep lifting my head out of the water, I was going into hypothermic shock, you name it. I was facing a lot, and I was just getting to the point where I knew that I was probably going to pass out from the cold and drown. And I just remember picking my head up, and then I got sat up. And I'm like, whoa. I'm like, that was, it was such a powerful, experience right at that point to be on the brink of death and then to be
lifted right out of it.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I remember looking down. He was freaking out. And I remember looking down. I could see my bone sticking out of my leg. And I'm like, okay, well, I still might die. And I was trying to tell him, because I didn't know, maybe I was going to die. Tell my sisters, my brother, everyone, I love them. And he just kept pointing behind me and telling me how far I flew. He's just like, mister, you flew so far.
He's like, dude, you're still alive. There's no way you're going to die now.
I know I don't know. And so, he kept saying it. Because he was in shock. And he just kept pointing behind me. And I'm like, I know. I'm the one that went off the cliff. I get it. So this was going on for a little while, pass out and then regain consciousness. And I try to talk to him, and he's still saying the same thing. And so at one point, I remember I was sitting there or laying there, and kind of out of my peripheral vision, I saw the fire rescue guy come walking past. And he wasn't really moving too fast. And I thought to myself, where's your sense of urgency? We got to have a little bit of a situation going on down here. And he kind of walked past me a little bit. I'm looking up at him going, and then he just turned around. He looked down, saw my eyes open, and just gasped. He went, and his eyes went wide. And I was like, hey, aren't you the professional here? One of us has got to remain calm, And he's like, you're going to be fine. We're going to get you out of here. I'm like, well, I'm not going to be fine, but I'm definitely good for, getting out of here. And it wasn't until later I was talking to some fire rescue guys, and they said, well, he thought it was just a body recovery. So as he walked past me and then he turned around and he saw that I was still alive, he was like, ah. So that's what that was all about.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was it. So, I was paralyzed from the waist down. I shattered 2 vertebrae and my spinal cord was punctured. So I guess you don't lose your status. Once you're a paraplegic or quadriplegic, you keep that status. I just happened to be a walking paraplegic, which is true. I mean, I can't run, I can't jump, I can't do, some of those things, but I can walk, and I have a challenging time walking, but I choose to walk.
Right.
I choose to walk.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you still know Daniel today?
I don't. I lost touch with them. They came to visit me at the hospital, and I stayed in touch with them for a little bit. But then, my life was quite hectic, going into rehab and trying to learn how to walk again.
Right.
Right.
So what did that process look like of you're in the hospital now, how long was your recovery period? What did that look like to get to where you are now?
I'm still in the recovery period. I'll be in the recovery period to the last breath of my life. The hospital was a couple weeks of incredible pain and, full body traction because I had, besides, shattering two vertebrae, I broke 5. I fractured my hip, my pelvis. I broke off my tailbone. I broke my right leg in many places with a compound. I had a closed head injury. So luckily I was in Denver, and they've got a great rehabilitation called Craig. And I was very fortunate because they're one of the best in the country.
Wow.
So I got accepted into there, and that was the process of, getting up and out of the bed and into the wheelchair and learning how to live life in a wheelchair.
What did the doctors say? Were they shocked that you were even alive when you came in? Did they ever say anything about that?
I don't think that the doctors necessarily knew the full extent of what I had survived. Later, I can bring that into the story a little bit later.
Okay.
They just really diagnosed me to never walk again. When individuals go through a spinal cord injury, there's different levels: quadriplegic, paraplegic, and then there's different types of physical ailments that come along with whether you're because some people are quadriplegics and they can't even breathe, and they have to live on a ventilator, and then there's some quadriplegics who can breathe but don't have use of their arms. And then, it kind of scales from there. Then there's quadriplegics that have use of some of their arms. And then you go to paraplegics like myself who have had and still do full upper body movement, but, it was the legs that was paralyzed.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to figure out how we link this into connecting. So
okay.
I'm really interested in figuring out how. This was his quote that deep connections saved his life. So how do we loop that?
Well, there's 2 coming down the road. I just wanted to lay that out as far as, that's a life experience of mine that now at the age of 25, everything that I knew myself to be was gone. Right. Like I lost everything. I lost my job, my house, my girlfriend, started to lose everything. And the levity of it became just too much. And so one night I was down at a corner of the rehabilitation, and I just came apart and I started crying. And I started, really crying because, the levity of the loss and, my mobility, it was just way too much. And I remember I was crying and I was crying and I was crying. And then I felt the presence of someone come up next to me. And their presence just kind of, calmed me down for a second. And I looked up, and it was a quadriplegic, a high quad. And he was moving his wheelchair by, blown into the tube. And he said, whoa, he's like, what's going on? Well, what's happening here that will cause you to, be so upset? And without looking into the eyes of that, I'll call him an angel, right? Because they all come in different shapes, different forms. I started to go into the woes are me, right? Because there were a lot of them at the time, right? Yeah. But, once again, I'm a paraplegic, and, quads would love to be paraplegics. Quads would love that. So I go into the woes are me, a little bit that I've already addressed. And he's like, wow, that sounds really, really difficult. And he says, but you're quadriplegic. You can take care of yourself. And or he said, I'm sorry, he said, you're a paraplegic, you can take care of yourself, you can feed yourself, you have your mobility, you can get around, and I said, yeah. He said, can I tell you a little bit about my life? And I said, sure. He says, I graduated valedictorian of my high school. I got accepted into an Ivy League school, got my law degree and married my high school sweetheart, had a couple beautiful children, earned to be partner in my law firm. And he said 2 months ago I decided to take a vacation, and on the whim went mountain bike riding and flipped over the handlebars and broke my neck. And he said, I thought I did everything right in my life. And he said, I will never practice law. I'll never hug my children. I'll never make love to my soulmate. I'll never hug her. And I'll probably die in the next couple of years. He looked at me and said, I think you ought to look at what you have instead of what you lost, and you might find yourself to be in a better situation. And from that point forward, that changed everything. That completely redirected the baseline of my life, because I looked into his eyes and I could see. And that reflection, to me, gave me hope and helped me focus on the blessings. Like when I was paralyzed, what could be worse? What could be worse than that? Not being able to walk. And I was just focusing on the loss, focusing on the challenges in front of me.
Right.
And he turned that all around for me. And from that point forward, I remember I stopped crying about it, and I just pulled myself up by my big boy pants every day. And, I'm going to get out of this wheelchair one way or the other. And I just kept a positive attitude, and I stopped complaining about it.
This is a little bit of a reoccurring theme that I find in all the amazing people that I interview. They have a challenge in front of them that seems impossible to overcome. Yet, by envisioning it and saying, I'm going to figure it out, they overcome those challenges that never should have been overcome. So,
well, never should have never.
Well, yeah.
You see what I'm saying? When you say never should, well, then that's the belief pattern.
Exactly.
When that was the other thing too. I remember when I was freshly injured and in the hospital, one of my lifelong best friends, even to this day, he came to me and, he was holding my hand, we were talking, and I said, I heal well. I always did. And I said, I'll heal from this. And when the doctor came in to tell me that, my injuries and that I should prepare myself to realize that I was going to live in the wheelchair for the rest of my life, I refused to believe it. I remember I was like, no, that's not going to be the case. I'm going to walk. And I always held on to that belief. Now, when I was talking to the quadriplegic, I couldn't move my legs at all.
Right.
Like there was no movement. And when they sent me out of rehab, they kind of put me into a very bad position, because the doctors in rehab can say, all right, well, you have a chance, so we'll put you through a gating process. And a gating is to learn to walk again. But because of my injuries and inability to walk at that time, they just said, you're never going to walk again. So they wouldn't even open my future up for a gating. So I had to teach myself how to walk again.
Wow. Which is, I can never even imagine that, but I'd imagine how difficult that is to do it yourself, because I've watched videos and documentaries on how difficult it is with help, going through that gating process, much less doing it yourself.
And going back to work. I went back to work in a wheelchair. I started so the spinal cord, once it's injured, it starts to swell. And that swelling can go down, I think, up to a few years. And as that swelling goes down, the neurons can start moving through the spinal cord again. So I started getting some movement in my lower extremities, like from my knees down. I could move that part. And then a little more came up, and I noticed I could pick my knees up off the wheelchair, pick my legs up. And so it was really painful sitting in the wheelchair all the time.
Yes,
and so I said, you know what, that's it. I'm going to go out and spend my own money and bought leg braces and crutches. And luckily, I was into muscle development, bodybuilding before, so I had a stronger upper body. So I would put the leg braces on and duct tape them together. And then I'd get my arm crutches and get myself out of the wheelchair and just hang out standing up. Because I felt like if I could get my mind to connect to my feet with my feet on the ground, because that's evolutionary, what we do, that would give me a better chance of walking again. And that was just how I started to do it. I started to walk like a pendulum of a clock. I think you can understand that one,
yeah.
Right?
Swinging back.
Yeah. So I put my crutches out in front of me and swing both my legs together. And so the process began.
Wow. Incredible. Oh, where do we go from here?
Okay.
What do you want to talk about next?
Well, let's talk. I'm taking my time to help the listeners understand the process of what I went through, the challenges of it, and get to the connection. Because I know that's what your podcast...
I don't want to rush into it either. I mean, this is incredible. I mean, if you're listening to this, what I've already gotten out is... And this, you have to constantly remind yourself. Like when I've been to Haiti on several trips, and you have to hear other people's stories and remember that even when things aren't going your way and you think you have it horrible, I mean, I think that's just... Your story is the perfect lesson of just, remember what you've got and keep pushing forward, because everything is possible that you put your mind to. I love that lesson that I've already gotten out of this. So continue on your path. Go at your pace, whatever you feel is relevant here.
Well, I'd like to rebuttal to your comment and the fact that, living the life of having an attitude of gratitude, where our attention goes, our focus flows. And I think it's, in today's society, very easy to get caught up on, I don't have enough, or my house isn't big enough, whatever it is. I mean, we could go through a plethora of, my car, this, that. I think people get distracted. And for me, having found myself in a place where I was paralyzed and diagnosed to never walk again, and after meeting that quadriplegic, I didn't have to. I chose to start looking at the blessings of my life, what most people just so much take for granted that it's not even part of their conscious, belief pattern. Like the fact that I could see. I started to be very thankful that I still had my eyesight, that I could feed myself. Simple things that people absolutely don't think twice about.
Right.
Don't think twice about. I had to look at those and go, those are serious blessings, and focus on those. So I started walking on the crutches and with the leg braces, and that seemed to be a very arduous process. I still didn't know if I was going to pull it off. And I was doing that for a while, and I remember one morning I got up and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to use my wheelchair today. I'm going to maneuver on these. And I got up and I was stretching on them and picking myself up, and then I kicked my leg forward. And I guess my hip flexors came back. Some muscles came back, and I'm like, oh, I'm in like Flynn. I can walk. And so that's...
How did you feel in that moment?
Do
you still remember it?
Oh, yeah, exactly where I was and everything. It was, it was the aha moment. It was the moment that changed, really. There's a lot of big moments, but that was a moment where I knew that, because I was not giving up, but I felt like there was more of a chance that I wasn't going to walk than I was. And it was so difficult to do. I felt like I was going to continue, but I knew it was going to be just extraordinarily difficult. And when I kicked him, like, yes, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. So then I started moving at a little quicker of a pace, and it wasn't long after that I went down to AFO, so no longer full leg crutches or braces, but half. And I was walking up the ramp. I had a ramp that went to my front door for my wheelchair. It was wood. It was wet. I slipped and I fell. And I re-broke my leg. I felt it pop. And so that night I actually tried to end my life. I was like, I can't do this. I went inside the home, and I remember I took a bunch of pain pills and drank some Jack Daniels and figured, I'll bring it to an end. And I woke up in the morning, I'm like, oh boy, I don't think I can die at this point. I'm like, maybe I just can't be killed. I don't know. So, there's more stories behind that one, but I'll make it simple. So I ended up going to the hospital, and they're like, yeah, you broke your leg. What had happened was I was in surgery for so long on my back that when they finally got to my leg, they figured, well, I'm never going to walk again. So instead of fixing it properly, they just kind of put it together with a rod and said, all right, get him off the operating table. So, I had a non-union that broke open, so they had to go back and fix it correctly, which is a whole story in itself. We could do a podcast on that one experience, but let's just move through that.
Right.
So, because I want to get to the aha moment.
Okay.
So they fix my leg, and I have to go back into the wheelchair, which is a real struggle, and then get, out of the wheelchair. And I wanted to start walking again, and they had to do some x-rays, and I had to do a follow-up with the neurosurgeon who did both. He attended, because I went through a couple neurosurgeons on the first surgery, but I think he attended my back, and he did my leg. So I was at a follow-up with him, and flippantly I was joking about the day of my accident, what we talked about, not only do I have to go off a cliff and survive, like I got to survive that, right? But then I got to land face down or bounce into an ice cold creek and, nearly freeze to death and go through that whole process. And he looked at me and he said, you don't know why you're walking, do you? And I said, well, because, I'm trying to walk. And he said, no. He said, that cold water kept your spinal cord from hemorrhaging and swelling. He said, when we got you on the operating table and opened up your back, we were amazed that, he said, you were still cold to the touch, that there was so little swelling around the injured area. And he said, if I hadn't landed in that cold water, that I never would have walked again. And so a light bulb went off, because I had an incident that happened 6 years before that, and I couldn't make the correlation. I knew something was going on, but I couldn't bring it together, and he brought it together at that point. It was like I said, just a huge light bulb went off. 6 years before that, I saved 4 people's lives from a frozen lake. And it happened one night. I was with some friends, and we were on a canal, and a person came skating out of the dark of night and letting us know that their friends fell in and that they needed us to go get campus security or, rescue. And I was talking to her, trying to figure out where they were, and she didn't know how long they had been in the water, and she couldn't tell me, and she thought I was wasting her time, that I couldn't help them. And so she skated away. And no one else really seemed to be too on it. And I just grabbed a hockey stick now I was captain. I was 18 years old, and I was captain of my hockey team, and I was a good skater. Someone else had a hockey stick I took from them, and started skating down a long canal. And it's late at night, and, came to a lake, and I couldn't see anything. And so I just started skating towards the middle and scanning around, and sure enough, I saw something, and I went up to it, and there were 4 people in the ice. There were 2 in 2 separate holes, and 2 people standing there. And I remember looking at the 2 people that were standing there like, hey.
What are you doing?
Did you come here with these people? Like, you think you might want to jump in and help out, or just do something. But, I was 18, and I wasn't familiar with shock at that time. So everyone was in shock.
Right.
The 2 people that were standing there were in shock, and the 4 people in the water were in shock. So, I had my ice skates on, so I just skated up to the first hole and grabbed the first person and just drug him out of the ice or the water, and then went back over and grabbed the next person and pulled them out. And then I shook the 2 people that were standing there and like, hey, listen, you got to keep them warm. You got to help them out. And so then I went to help the other 2, and I was hitting the ice with the stick, which wasn't going to tell the true strength of the ice underneath 180, 90 pounds. So I broke through. But I knew it was just hard because I was just skating on it. So I just put my elbows up and started crushing the ice until I could get myself out. And then I took a hard look around, and I'm like, this isn't, this is a serious situation right now. Like, I'm cold. I just went for a dip. But at that point, I had broke open a pathway for the two that were the furthest out to get in or get over to where I was. And so I was really trying to encourage them to come over to where I was. The third guy started making his way over. I was pulling him up, and I just about I did get him out. And then the fourth person was losing consciousness. Like he was going in and out. So then I had to step back a couple steps and skate forward and leap into the water and grab him, bring him over and pull him out and, get him out of the water. And then at that point I was like, all right, I've had enough fun with y'all. I'm out, right? Like it's been fun and it's been real, but it hasn't been real fun. So I just left that night, went back to the dorm rooms, and we heard some sirens, and some of the people in the rooms were like, you should go down there and tell them what you did. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. That was in Buffalo. I lived in Niagara Falls, went back to Niagara Falls, didn't think much of it. And then some of my hockey teammates knew because I was captain, they started calling me Captain America. Right. And so that followed over to, the high school, and some of my classmates were calling me Captain America. And my gym teacher asked me, he's like, what is this Captain America stuff about? And I told him what happened. And then I was sitting in class, and I got called down to the principal's office, and I'm like, oh,
what did I do?
No, right, exactly. What did he catch me on? Like, how bad is this going to be? I got 2 classes.
Am I going to get suspended?
Yeah, am I going to get suspended? What am I going to tell my dad? Like, how is this going to work out? And so I got to his office, and he started questioning me. And he's like, were you at the University of Buffalo? And I said, yeah. He's like, did you pull some people out of the water? And I said, yeah, I couldn't have been to that. And so he said, tell me about it. So I told him about it, and then he called a reporter from the local newspaper who got on the story. He confirmed that the University of Buffalo, they were looking for me. He came, interviewed me, and I made the front page of the newspaper, Recognition Finds Hero.
Wow.
Yeah. So, the awards started coming in. I made the opinion page because it was my opinion at the time. And I had started getting the awards before the opinion page that the awards were great, but this is what we should do for each other. This is how we should treat each other. If someone needs help, you help them, right? Even if for my particular situation, I put my life out on the limb. I didn't necessarily feel it that way at the time. I was just more interested in doing it.
Right.
I felt that I could do it, so I would do it, and I wanted to do it. I didn't know them, but I knew that they needed help, and I wanted to help them, and I was the right person at that time to do it, and I was put in that position to do it. And so when the neurosurgeon looked at me and he said, you don't know why you're walking, and I thought I did, and he told me it was the cold water, that's when the light bulb went off. I saved those 4 people's lives from ice cold water because it was the right thing to do. And then 6 years later, my life was saved, and my life was saved by ice cold water. Treat others as you wish to be treated. What comes around goes around. I didn't know those people, but I showed them love. And by me showing them love, it was paid forward in the future, because those 2 men who didn't know me loved me enough to come and rescue me.
They could have kept on driving, and yeah. Did you blow past them? Did you
Yeah.
A lot of times when people blow past me like that, you're just like, I can imagine myself being that way. Like, oh, that guy just blew past me, huh?
I don't know. I disagree with you. I think that if you were in that truck, and some guy went by you, because you were going slow and he was going fast,
right?
And then you saw what they saw, and you thought what they thought, I don't believe that you'd be like, oh, you drove, so you would pull over.
Oh yeah,
I could see it in your eyes. You'd pull over.
I most definitely would. I know that there are some people out there, and sometimes I have that mindset, and you have to remember that everyone's human. But
isn't that why we're talking right now? It's
Absolutely.
about the connection. It's about being there for someone,
caring enough to do something when you see something,
even if you don't know them. And I think that's what this world needs more of. And I believe that my life is very strong, living proof. What did Jesus say? Love one another. And what does the golden rule say?
Treat others as you wish to be treated.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And so I just believe that's the motto of my life.
There you go.
The karma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so real. And as soon as you start being nice to people, you start to realize it's like, you don't realize it immediately, but as soon as you start going out of your way to do things for others, it's incredible the things that you start getting back that you don't even realize in the moment. Like, I mean, it took you 6 years, I guess. I mean, longer than 6 years probably to realize that what came back around. And it's not always immediate either. And it's not all about that. You don't go out and just do nice things for people because you want that reward. But that reward is part of it. I believe, at least.
Well, yeah, I didn't, when I saved those individuals' lives, I did it because it was the right thing to do in my moral judgment. There was a part, I was in for the action, right? And the juice is in the action.
Right.
So I'm like, I want to see what's going on. But I also felt that this was a situation where people were hurting. People could die, and I could help them. And so for me, it was instinctual. I just wanted to go do it, and I did it. And to be quite honest, it wasn't, to be really honest, I don't think it was until maybe just, I don't even know, like maybe a year or two ago, where I had actually put myself into their shoes. Like, I had never even considered that. It was just something that I did, and I did it, and I never thought, like I said, put myself in their place, where here they are in this ice cold water, freezing to death, getting ready to drown in the dark of night, and then all of a sudden, here I come. Just here I come, and just pulling them all out of the water. I just did it. So I always looked at it from my side. But then when my accident happened, I realized that I was then on the other side of it.
You were the one getting pulled out.
I was the one getting pulled out.
Yeah.
So, I didn't do it thinking that in the future it was going to come back around.
Right.
And even when it did come back around, it took a little bit to put the pieces together.
And to be thankful for that. I imagine, there were probably sometimes you're like, man, I just wish I didn't have to go through all of this, and wish you would have just...
That day?
Yeah. I don't know.
But then we wouldn't be here doing this, right? Like,
I'm so thankful that you did.
Yeah, they say the tough part for me is, like, so many times I've heard God has a purpose for you. That's a challenging one. That's a lot to live up to. So I think this is, part of that.
Absolutely.
Sharing the story.
Well, the thing I love about this is I have no idea who's going to hear any of this. It might be someone in my friend circle, but I know with every episode that I do, I feel like that there's something that people need to hear. And even if one person listens to it, that's all I really care about, is that one person's life is made better, hear something that saves somebody or keeps them going or pushes them to do better. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I respect your effort. If one person hears it and their life is better, or it inspires many people, I think that the fact that you're just doing it sets forth a positive energy in the universe, and it grows from there. And the more people do positive things, the more we speak about love and connection and caring for each other and caring for the world and spreading that. It's a catalyst. Even if it's just a little bit of energy we're putting out, it can be like the butterfly effect.
That's right. I love that. Gets me so excited.
I know you're doing a great job.
Up.
I really,
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to be on and talk about it, because I do believe that part of my life has been very extraordinary. And I've gone on a few podcasts, I've done some things, and I'm starting to write a book. And this inspires me to stay on that path of writing it. And, when we talked and you said, your podcast was about connection, I felt, well, I think I know a little bit about that.
I also know somebody who can help you out with your book too.
Nice. You'll have to forward that to me.
Yeah, I can get you his email.
Yeah. So I commend you for what you're doing. I'm looking forward to the 100th or the 200th show.
Yeah. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. You're doing a great job.
Well,
you're getting a lot of good people.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
1,000%. So continuing on with your story. So what part of connecting kept you here and saved your life? I mean, we know about now the guy that came up to you. Were there any other significant times where you met somebody and it changed your perspective, or it changed the way that you thought or the way that you do things?
I think that through my experience being exposed to healers, I think made a huge positive impact on my life. People who care enough to dedicate their life to healing has been extraordinary for me to be sitting in front of you. So I think that it's definitely the healers that I've worked with, and some really amazing ones, and some very powerful modalities. I met a iridologist. It's someone that studies the iris of the eye, and they can find deficiencies in the body through that, and then they treat the body with herbs. To be honest, I don't think I would be anywhere this healthy and this vibrant if I hadn't met that iridologist. Through detoxing and cleansing and repairing and healing. So healers, huge. An acupuncturist out of Nevada City, California, Tria Hill. Give him a shout out. Maybe one day he'll hear this. Tria, you're amazing. The healer to the healers. He was incredible. I saw him for a few years and just really made my life better.
Wow.
So I'm a huge fan of healers.
That's awesome.
People, and usually interesting, people who heal won't call themselves healers. They're practitioners. But people who, like I said, dedicate their lives to helping others.
Relieving the pain of others.
Relieving the pain, the discomfort, helping someone get better. I think that's really a commendable and honorable way to express your life and dedicate your life is healing.
Awesome.
And hopefully my words are helping to heal.
Yeah, absolutely. If you could leave a message, we've talked about message a lot, I feel like, but I mean, if someone's made it this far, what would you say to the listener that's listening to this? Your nugget that you're going to leave for the people.
Oh, that's a tough one. Come on. I don't know. Challenges are inevitable. Defeat is optional.
Got the living example in front of us here.
Yeah. Belief.
Yeah.
Just how powerful the mind is.
And faith too.
Faith is an amazing one. Yes. Faith and belief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
focus on the blessings. How about that one?
That's a good
one. Do I get
too.
2?
Yeah, you can have let's do 3. Do you have another one? Man, I just think about how important it is to have faith when you're in a difficult situation, and to just believe in yourself. And it's hard. I mean, there have been plenty of times where I didn't believe in myself anymore, and I was like, you just want to give up, and
really, you don't look like the kind of guy that would ever want to give up.
I've wanted to give up before.
Really? I can't see it. Really? You've given up?
I've given up before, yeah, several times on different things.
What, just for like an hour or two, right? Not for like a day or anything like that.
For a few months,
You didn't go a few months, maybe a few minutes.
But I mean, just knowing that whatever you want to do is possible, even though they're the barriers placed on you. I've seen people, I feel like I've lived 5 lives with the blessings that I've had to see different people from different backgrounds, and just getting out there and through talking to people, the stories that you hear just blow your mind. But the thing that's in common with all of these people who have done these incredible things, overcome this incredible adversity, the roadblocks that were placed in front of them, was that they wouldn't give up. They said, I'm going to walk again, or I'm going to drive again. I'm going to do this, that, or the other. I've got some friends that have died and come back to life. I've met one of my science teacher was permanently disabled in a car accident, and she still teaches science today and made it work. And she drives a car, and it's that incredible willpower and refusal to give up. So if you're listening to this and you're able-bodied and you haven't had anything happen, like, man, what is your excuse?
Yeah,
why can't you get it done?
Well, each individual, everyone has their own limitations, their own blockages. I did write this one down, is thoughts are energy. They are real. They have power. And it's amazing how powerful those thoughts are. So it's all in what we think, right? What we tell ourselves, the thoughts we conjure up. Either they're going to be good and move us forward, or they're going to be bad and they're going to keep us stuck. Either way, it's up to us. It's what we think.
Right.
Our thoughts become things. What do we want those things to look like is the question.
If you think you're stuck, then you are. Yeah.
The mind can make, what does it say? The mind can make heaven of hell or hell of heaven.
That's a good one. I heard a quote today. I was listening to a YouTube video. I forget who it was, but he said the only thing that separates man and a pig is our mind. I
don't know. Sometimes I think pigs are smarter. Oh, another one. A disciplined mind leads to happiness. An undisciplined mind leads to suffering. So a disciplined mind, maybe.
How do you discipline your mind? What are some ways that maybe people can take that and make an actionable step out of that?
Doesn't it boil down to self-talk? It's all self-talk, right? What we're telling ourselves, what we can do, telling ourselves who we are, who are not, what we want to do, what we don't want to do. Is there the monkey mind chatter going on, or are we saying positive things to keep us on track, to keep us happy, to keep us present in the moment? That attitude of gratitude, right?
That's right.
It's easy to say, right?
It is. Until you have something bad happen, and then,
or even good. I think there's even good things that go on in people's lives, but yet they're not in that mindset of gratitude. It's not enough, or worry, concern, rushing, being away from the present, because I guess that's where it all really happens, is in the present, right?
If you worry about the past or the future, then you can't. I forget what the saying was. One of the preachers I listened to said this, but if you're worrying about the past and the future, you're just going to have anxiety, because you can't predict, you can't change those. All you can do is change what's happening in the present, and that can lead to your future.
That's very wise. It's very true. Well, you can't really change anything about the past. You can learn from it. I get caught up on the past all the time. I'll be the first to admit, I have a difficult time letting go, even though I sound really great. I probably sound really good. The reality is that's one of my biggest challenges is if something didn't go the way I want it to go, I dwell on it. And that's one of my biggest challenges is dwelling and not just letting go, not stumbling over what happened in the past, and just moving forward in the future.
Yeah, I struggle with that too. I mean, even last night I said something to someone that I was talking to, and I was like, man, I just wish I could take that on back.
Oh, yeah. I understand that.
And I thought about it for the next 20 minutes probably. I was sitting in the car thinking about it, and I was like, it just snapped out. I was like, wait, why am I thinking about this? I can't change it. Like, it's not even that big of a deal. It wasn't anything that was like, I said anything tearing somebody down. It was just something I admitted stupid about myself. And I was like, then I was just turned on some happy music, and forgot all about it. And now I'm just like, now I'm in the mindset of, okay, who really cares? I'm having him on the podcast next week. So
Yeah.
you just keep rolling on forward.
Well, it was in the wise words of Satyartha Ananda Babaji, Phelan Newton, the Denver Guru kid, that said, just let it go. Just let it go. Sometimes those things come up, and if it's chewing at you, you can always make an amends. I mean, if it has to do with someone else, there's always the I'm sorry.
Right.
Or if it's with yourself. But letting it go. Learn from it. And what is that? The non-attachment. Oh, man, that's a tough one for me. I wish I was really good at non-attachment.
Right.
If I could do anything, it would be a master, a guru of non-attachment. Because I get attached, and boy, it's tough to let go. And what do they say? Attachment suffering, right? Attachment suffering. To be non-attached.
Is it bad to be attached to something, though? That's like, I feel like oftentimes it just depends on what you're being attached to. Like, I think about being attached to a brand, because a lot of people listening to this, probably business people, or I don't know who's listening to this. But when I think about being attached to a brand, if that's a positive brand, then it's a good thing, So I don't know. I'm just kind of talking out my butt here.
No, you're talking, I mean, the reality is the universe is listening. The universe is listening when we speak. And it's, I think, a very deep philosophical question that doesn't, you could, split hairs on it. And I'm just saying that attachment, or I guess I'm saying it, but I've heard and I've repeated it, so I must somehow believe it in a little bit, that, attachment is suffering. Like right now I'm going through a breakup, and I can choose to feel attached to that and, the suffering from the loss, right? As an example, and say, I can try to hold on to that attachment, but what am I getting from it? Right? This particular time in my life, I'm getting suffering from it. Or if I can say, you know what, it didn't work out, I'm going to let it go, I'm going to detach and choose just to take the lessons and not the suffering.
Yeah. Sometimes suffering can lead to the best growth, though.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I don't know why it has to be that way.
It sucks.
I've learned a lot, I'll tell you that much, through mine,
Yeah, I learned a lot through my suffering, too. I got fired from a job that I thought I was going to spend the next 15 years doing. And, looking back on it, hindsight, I'm like, man, that's the best thing that ever happened to save me from 15 years behind a desk. But at the time, it sure didn't feel like that, I went through a lot of mental, kind of suffering, thinking, you idiot, why'd you do that or the other? But it led to me being able to be here. It's 4:04 right now. I would be still at the office. I wouldn't be able to be talking to you right now if I hadn't have gone through that suffering.
Yeah, well, there's the old analogy of the farmer whose son was out in the field and fell off the donkey and broke his leg, and the neighbor came over and said, oh, that's horrible. And he broke his leg. He said, we shall see. And then the war broke out, and they came along to get all the healthy young men to go fight the war, and he couldn't fight the war because he had a broken leg. And the neighbor came over, and he said, oh, that was great. And the farmer said, we shall see. So it's just a matter of taking each experience without that attachment and suffering from that, going, oh, no, it shouldn't be this way, it should be that way, and letting go. Because, look at you now. And why are you here? Why are you doing this? Why are you having this podcast? Why are you going to continue to do these podcasts? What is it?
This is simply to help people, and to hopefully get that one person to go and talk to somebody, or to talk to someone about what they're struggling with, or, to make more connections to people, because really that's all we have. Because if you're on your social media all the time and you have that, it's not really connection. It's not personal. It's just a different. I want people to get in person and make connections with people and talk to people. That's why I do this.
Yeah, it's very important. I think that there's a big push to keep us separated. I think it was who was it, Julius Caesar? Who said, or was it Alexander, divide and conquer? So if they can keep us divided, they can keep us down. The more we come together, the more we win. And if you look what's going on in the world, it seems to be all about separation. You two aren't the same color skin, or you're not the same ethnicity, or whatever it is. And, this country's over here and you're that country over here, and we should fight you this and fight for that, or whatever it is. It's constant, separation. So I applaud what you're doing to bring people together, because the more we come together and the more we let go of whatever we think is keeping us apart, the stronger we're going to be as a global community.
Right.
I definitely support what you're doing.
I love that. Well, we're coming up here on our time.
We did it, huh?
Yeah, we did it.
It was a whole hour?
Yeah, we're
Nice.
actually not even an hour yet. It feels like it. I just met you yesterday, but it feels like we've known each other for a lot longer.
You're an old soul.
I am an old soul. I drink old fashions and like old things. But yeah, I'm so excited for people to be able to hear your story. If anyone wants to reach out to you, what would be the best way to do that? Or if you have any social media or way people can keep up with you, or when the book comes out, what they can look up?
Yeah, I still haven't come up with the name of the book. That's one of the difficult ones. Well, you can always email me if you would like for me to, talk on your podcast. Can I just give my email? Yeah. It's a hero for all @gmail.com. So a hero, the number 4, the word all @gmail.com.
Awesome.
Because I've saved more than 4 people's lives. That was just 4 at once. I've saved another 2.
That's another podcast.
That's another podcast.
Oh, before we go,
yeah.
Tell me about the award. Tell me just a little bit about that, because I want to put this in the front.
Oh, when I saved the 4 people's lives, my assemblyman, when they were in the New York, because it happened in New York, when the Senate was when they got together, he stopped the hearings and said that, someone from his district, me, did this, and then they put it up for that a resolution would be passed. So a resolution was passed that day in the New York State Senate notifying my acts of heroism. So I had a resolution passed in the New York State Senate notifying my acts of heroism. I got a congressional certificate. A bunch of different awards, but that wasn't what it was all about. It was great. Right. The awards are great. They're plaques that I could hang on the wall, and they say this or say that. It's fantastic. But when I look at my life, it's not the awards. It was the action. It's the love. It's caring about someone that I didn't even know enough to do that. And then that came. I could never have imagined that what I did that night would manifest into what happened to me 6 years later.
I love it. Well, Thank you for coming on here and telling your story. I'm so excited for this episode to get out and for people to hear this, and we'll keep up with each other.
Treat others as you wish to be treated.
That's right.
Keep focused on the blessings. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, there you go. This has been the Art of Connecting podcast. Follow us on all the social medias and go listen to the other episodes. There's some amazing, amazing people that have talked on here, and we have even more coming up. Y'all have a great day.